Okay, so I hope you enjoyed your break, and now we're gonna delve right into permanent color. I just wanna stop and give you guys a quick little refresher so you understand this, because it is a lot of information, and I find that if I deliver this in many different ways and I repeat it in different ways, you'll understand it. So your book gives you a demo of the hair shaft, right? You've got your cuticle on the outside, your cortex in the middle. So with the temporary hair color, we learned that the molecules are very big. They just kind of coat the hair's cuticle. So we learned that semi-permanent color, they're a little bit smaller, so they're able to fill in little gaps and get in a little bit into the cuticle, but not fully penetrate the cortex unless the hair is very damaged or open. And then we learned that demi-colors are able to be oxidative, so they're small enough to get in there and penetrate partially, not fully. What makes hair color permanent is now we're adding stronger peroxide, so the peroxide is going to be able to disperse and melt away some of those melanin pigments, making the hair color lighter if you choose. If you're using a 10 volume or a lower volume, you're not going to get as much lift. And we have more alkalinity, so it will make the lift work better. But also, the aniline derivatives, which are the dye precursors, they're going to go in there. They're very, very small. They're going to work with that peroxide, and they're going to expand. They're too big to escape the hair, so they're trapped. That's why, and the book doesn't explicitly say this, color does not lift hair color. But, and here's a big but, if you have someone with, let's say a lighter shade blonde, level 7 blonde, and you decide to put a high lift hair color over that, you're gonna get some lift, but it's not gonna be predictable. High lift hair color will bump color out, does not fully remove it like a color remover would or like a bleach would. Also, if you have a client with semi-permanent hair color, do not think that putting bleach with a peroxide will work. What happens is that bleach will work. It works on the hair, but it doesn't work in the right way. What it does is it's not predictable, one, and two, you run the risk of having, let's say a nice light pink, you put a bleach over that, there's a risk that the bleach will cause the molecules to go deeper in the hair and you can actually get darker. So if you over-process it with the bleach, you can cause dark hair that's really weak and brittle. I've seen colors that were red go almost blue because it was pushed in the hair. You also want to make sure that you're using the designated remover. What I'll probably do is towards the end of the chapter do a whole separate kind of like lecture on this, on just to add on, because the book doesn't tell you how to remove these beautiful colors you create. The book tells you a very old school technique, and I learned this. We really don't use this anymore because now we have demi colors, and it's called a soap cap. So a soap cap is a combination of equal parts of a permanent color mixture and shampoo used during the last 5 minutes of a hair color service. You're gonna work it through to refresh the ends. The reason why we don't do this anymore is one, it is a little harsh pH-wise, and two, when you put color over color over color, it makes it darker, permanent color. So if I take, let's say someone has a level 6 golden color, if I keep overlapping and overlapping over time, the ends are gonna get darker. And that was a big issue. So with the soap cap, you're putting the soap in there, diluting that color, and almost making it work like a demi-color, but it would be a little aggressive. We don't really do that anymore. We used to do it on my grandma, who she would color her regrowth, and then we'd do a soap cap on the ends. And when I told my mom about demi-permanent color back in like 2011 or something, she was shocked that that existed. I'm like, yes, it does. That's what toners are. They're a relatively new technology, and now we're just fully learning how this works. So know that permanent colors are regarded as the best products for covering gray hair. They remove the natural pigment from the hair through lightening, while at the same time adding artificial color, and this reaction causes the gray to get covered, but also gives you a beautiful result. So know that when you're working with color, you're gonna have to also encounter what's called a natural, and I use that term, natural color. Natural color is a term I use very loosely because it typically describes what's called vegetable hair colors. These will be henna, and they're obtained from the bark and leaves of plants. Here's a dirty little secret. Henna only comes in one color, and that's a red. You do not get blonde henna or black henna. Typically, black henna or blonde hennas are typically hennas that are combined with heavy metals, and the result is going to be a color that is actually metallic, and that's something you got to be careful with when you're working with henna. Henna will block out other surfaces. It can cause hair to overprocess if it has any metals that are laced in there, because that will react violently. So henna typically only comes in clear, chestnut, auburn tones. Your book says black, but use that for a grain of salt. And when a client comes into the salon to want a, let's say a bleach or a highlights, she's gonna be very upset when you tell her no, because what happens is henna will either block the surface because it coats the hair, and the more you use it, it just coats it and coats it and coats it. Removing henna is still one of the biggest challenges that we face behind the chair. There's different theories. You can use Malibu Sea, different treatments. Some people use coconut oil to take it off. There's also other types of hair color, like one of them was from Lush. They were using the Maryland treatment, which I tell people do not use. Someone used it, they put bleach over it, and I saw in one of my professional groups, it actually melted the hair because it reacted so bad. You have to be very careful with some of the vegetable products because they actually can react violently. Also read this caution box. I'm going to read this to you guys. Do not use an oxidating hair color with peroxide on hair that has been treated with metallic hair dye. If you do, the hair will swell and smoke, appearing to be boiling from the inside out. That's what happens when you use any kind of chemical such as a perm or a color or, God forbid, a relaxer or bleach on metallic hair color. We don't mix color in a metal bowl. We don't apply color with a metal brush. We don't use metal clips from coloring because you'll cause a violent reaction. So if you have metal that's a heavy buildup on your hair and you put lightener over it, if you touch the client's scalp, you'll get a severe burn that is so bad that they might get permanent hair loss. Please take Legally Blondes on Coastline Education. You'll be shocked at some of the results just from mineral buildup in the hair. Even if someone has very hard water, that can cause a reaction. And what happens is if the client says they're burning, you immediately rinse the product out of their hair, cool water, have them go to urgent care immediately to make sure the burn doesn't get bad. Do not try to treat a burn in the salon by putting a heavy cream on it because you're going to trap the heat in and cause the burn to become worse. So that's my own little personal advice for you. Also, when we talk about the patch test and the hair color reaction, every salon should always carry liquid Benadryl. Give them a shot of liquid Benadryl and make sure the client calls 911 from their phone, never your phone or the salon's phone, because when they call 911, they're able to be responsible for the ambulance and the call, not you. If the client is having a reaction and you can't get into their phone, then of course, or have a bystander call. So that's my advice to you, and you always want to make sure you're prepping for the worst. So metallic hair color, this is called gradual hair color. These are hair colors containing metal salts that change the hair color gradually by progressively building up and exposure to air, creating a dull metallic appearance. These products require daily application and historically are marketed to men. These are going to be your just for men colors. Anything that's Grecian formula, which is lead acetate, right? Lead is a toxin. Why are you putting it on your hair? And the main problem is that they're unnatural looking and there's a limited range of colors, really only dark blonde, browns, and especially blacks. Your black and brown shades, those are where we're going to get the metallic salts from. You don't find red shades in metallic dyes either. At best, two things will happen. At a best case scenario, when you color over, or God forbid, perm over a metallic hair dye, you're going to get hair breakage, and at best, discoloration and off violet, off blue, maybe a green color, and at worst, major hair loss, major breakage, scalp burns, and hair loss. So be very careful, and when in doubt, always do a strand test. Hydrogen peroxide developers. So hydrogen peroxide developer is an oxidizing agent that when mixed with an oxidation hair color supplies the necessary oxygen gas to develop the color and change in a natural hair color. Developers are known as oxidizing agents and a catalyst and have a pH between 2.5 and 4.5. The range is so big because there's not only a number of range developers out there, developers also come in strengths known as volumes. So you might have a stronger volume, which will also cause a lower pH because developer is acidic. So let's say we're using a 70 volume, that's going to have a lot lower of a pH. They are clear liquids. They make it easy to apply the product from an applicator bottle. There's cream forms that make the color have a thicker viscosity. Fun fact, Logic's hair color was the first to come out with a developer that worked like a lock and key that actually thickened up as you mixed it. So you could only use it with that developer. My professional tip, always use the developer that they have. People get in the habit of using generic developers. You gotta be very careful with that because sometimes there's additional chemicals that make it work appropriately like lock and key. I always say test it out on a swatch because some colors may work, other colors may come out too light or too deep. It's incredible how the science works. How even though developer's peroxide, there's other ingredients in there that work to make it work the way it should. Also, know that if you mix the wrong developer, like if the color is supposed to be mixed with a cream color and you use a liquid color, it's gonna not mix as well and you will get an uneven result. There is liquid colors which are meant to be mixed with a liquid bottle. There are cream colors which are meant to be mixed in a brush and bowl. Don't try to mix a cream color in a bottle. My grandpa did that with my grandma's color. And what happened was he did that and he wasn't getting a correct mixture and her color came out very splotchy and very off tone. So that is that. Know that some manufacturers do that, like I just said, that not Matrix, Logix was the first to do a special developer to work with its special color, so always get the developer that you need. Now volume measures the concentration and strength of a peroxide. The lower the volume, the less lift. The higher the volume, the more lift is achieved. Now your book only gives you 10, 20, 30, and 40 volume. There used to be volumes that were 5 volume, there was a 0 volume just for just viscosity or dilution. And you can actually get up to, I think, back in the day, color companies would have 50, 60, 70, and sometimes 80 volume. The reason why they don't do that is that UPS claimed that it was causing a lot of issues because if the color spilled, they would get it on their hands, it would burn. You can still get larger volumes developer. Just make sure you have advanced training before you use them. Know that 10 volume is used when there is less lift, and this will enhance a client's natural hair color. So what you're supposed to do when you're mixing permanent hair color, right? We're talking permanent. The client is at a natural level 6. They want a red shade, so you pick a 6R. Client's are ready to level 6. You don't need to get additional lift. What you do is you take 10 volume, mix up that 6R, apply it to their regrowth, and then you're gonna make them that 6R, and you're not gonna, because you don't need as much lift. The client's already at a level 6. If your client wants to go to a level 7, you're gonna use 20 volume. This is the standard volume. It's used to achieve the most results with permanent hair color, and it's used for complete gray coverage. You can also cover gray with 10 volume with certain lines, so make sure you're aware of that. 30 volume is used for additional lift with permanent hair color. If you want to do fashion reds, make sure you're using 30 and 40 volume. That gives you more lift, it gives you more of that pigment you want to expose to react with the red hair color, and it lets the color really show through. If you are at a level 6 and you want to go to a level 8, do 30 volume. If you want to go to a level, was it 6? I lied, sorry. If you are at level 6 and you want to go to a level 7, do 20 volume. If you want to go to a level 8, try 30 volume, level 9, 30 or 40. And if you want maximum lift using level 10, use a 40 volume. This is something you'll kind of learn with experience and like how to mix. Some people mix in between and get 35 and they want a little bit more lift, or 25 volume, which gives you a little extra lift. Typically, it will depend on the porosity and the coarseness or the thickness of the hair. When you're using developers, thicker hair requires a longer processing time. Standard processing for regular permanent color is 45 minutes. I always do 45 minutes on gray coverage. For regular colors, I always give it the 45 minutes unless you're taking certain medications like thyroid medications, which may increase the processing time or decrease it. You can check. But typically when you give the hair the full time to develop, you'll get better results. So that's how volume works. Know that you want to store your peroxide in a cool, dark place. Now we have stabilized developers. Back in the day, there were not stabilized developers. You had a mixture on developers, and it was really like working like a chemist. So now everything's pre-mixed, so I always say we're like a little spoiled. If any of you are using L'Oreal Anoa, when I used Anoa back in the day, we had to mix our colorant to our developer and we had to add our oil. So we had to think like a chemist, mix it up. It was very complicated. We had to get trained with it. Guess what? Now they changed it. It works just like Redken Chromatics and Matrix Color Insider. Everything's in one tube, and then your cream developer's mixed. So that is how that works in volume. And another thing is, I can't stress this enough, if you've had me, you'll know I will rant. When you're mixing bleach, stronger volume developer does not equal better lifting. Bleach is bleach. It is a slow, steady reaction. Keep it that way. Do not add heat to bleach. When I mix bleach, I do 20 volume maximum. I never exceed 20 volume. That's the magic number. If you exceed that, you're gonna risk damage and compromising the cuticle. Every time I have a client and they've been using 30, 40 volume on them, putting them on their dryer, they'll complain about off-color results, yellow. I keep that bleach on. I had clients, some clients may need the bleach on, bleach in 20 volume, 2 hours or more. Other clients might need it a little bit less. It's a slow, steady reaction. It keeps the cuticle intact. It lets a nice bleaching reaction happen over a steady time. If you throw 40, 30 volume in, you're gonna explode that bleach reaction and get little steady lift. So lighteners. Lighteners are a chemical compound that lighten hair by dispersing, dissolving, and decolorizing the natural hair pigment. As soon as hydrogen peroxide is mixed in the lightener formula, it begins to release oxygen. This is known as oxidation, the process by which oxygen is released, and it occurs within the cortex of the hair shaft. To achieve a very pale light blonde, they recommend doing a double process. A double process is also known as two-step coloring. You're gonna first color the hair with a decolorize the hair with a lightener, so put a bleach on, lift to the shade that you want, whether that be a pale yellow, and then you're gonna tone at that level with a toner. So if you're at a pale yellow, you're gonna use a 10V toner, or a 10A, any kind of blonde tone that you want, you're gonna use that tone. Also know that you can do a double process, technically with high lift. If your client is a natural level 6, you do not need to use bleach. Again, you do not need to use bleach. Don't be cookie cutter. You can use hair color, level 10, and then tone. You can use a high lift hair color, which you'll get a lot lighter results, and then tone. Be creative. Don't be that regular stylist that does 10 volume lightener and just a 10V. Think outside the box and be creative. That's why you're a colorist. And this is what makes you different from the stylist that puts on hair color and the actual hair colorist. So, know that you will use toners, whether that be a semi or demi-permanent, and you're going to tone at the level, because if your client is at that level 8 or 9, which is the outside of the banana, that ugly yellow gold, don't think if you take a 10V it will tone that. It won't. Toner only works the level. So you got to keep processing, keep checking and keep checking, keep checking. Once you're at that very pale yellow at the inside of the banana, wash off that lightener and then put your toner on. So know that hair lighteners are used to create light blonde shade that is not achievable with permanent hair color alone. Know that you will accomplish some objectives. You will lighten hair prior to the application of a final color. You will lighten hair to a particular shade. Brighten and lighten an existing shade. Lighten only certain parts of the hair. So if you're doing foils, partial foil, your supplement book for my lady has a 3/4 foil, which I thought was ridiculous because I've never heard of that. Typically it's either a partial foil, which is a few hairline foils, and up here, your mohawk section, and you leave this untouched. If you're doing a full foil, it's you foil everything. If you're doing a ombre or special effects highlighting, I had someone that came in, we did half the side blonde, the Corella, and the other half dark black. So we did 2 separate processes. And the other is to lighten natural, dark, or color treated levels. If you have hair color in the hair, do not listen to the book, cross that out. Do not put lightener over Box Black's hair dye to remove the color. No, you gotta use a color remover. Let the hair heal, then you go in with a color or bleach. And I'll explain why at the end of the video. So, I'm gonna give you an early break. We're gonna break here. We're gonna talk about the decolorizing process, some consultation skills, and if we have time, patch test. So take a 5-minute break and I'll be right back.